You're listening to an Ono Media podcast.
Good morning, and thanks for joining me for Rise in Crime, your morning caffeine hit all about crime. I'm Mama Jules, and let's start today with a verdict in the Nicole Rice murder trial. Now, I haven't touched on this story at all here at Rise in Crime, so let's start from the very beginning. Back in June of 2007, 18-year-old college student Anita Knutson was found dead in her bed in her off-campus apartment in North Dakota. The Minot State University student had been stabbed twice in the chest. Her father found her body after Anita failed to show up for her work and also after she would not answer repeated phone calls. When police entered the apartment, they found Anita face down with her head facing the foot of her bed. Her leg was tucked under her and she was folded in half, so like laying over the top of her legs. She had one lone blood spot in the middle of her back, a circle of crimson blood staining her robe. The knife that had killed her was hidden under the blankets. When they turned Anita over, they saw what appeared to be a stab wound in her chest. It was in the middle of her sternum. But the rest of the bedroom? It looked exactly as it should. Nothing really out of place, a little messy, but nothing really out of place. There was no sign of a scuffle. And her purse, well, it was right there on the dresser with cash in it. So it didn't seem like a robbery, and it didn't seem like sexual assault. The apartment door was locked, and a screen was cut on the window. As investigators worked the case, they had come up with 4 conclusions. First, Anita had a wannabe boyfriend. That guy who just won't leave you alone. His name was Michael Vaughn. Then there was the maintenance guy, Marty Annell. He had the ability to get into the apartment and he knew Anita. But Marty kind of removed himself effectively from the list for questioning when he completed suicide in 2009. Then there was Devin Hall, a somewhat sketchy man seen running near Anita's apartment at the expected time of her murder. Or the last choice, it was Anita's roommate, Nicole Thomas, now known as Nicole Rice. Detectives slowly worked that list. They weren't that interested in Michael Vaughn. There was just really no animosity there. Why would he kill her? But they did find animosity between the 2 roommates, Nicole and Anita. Escalating tension could be tracked in their text messages. Nicole had even been heard saying to friends that one way or another, she was going to get Anita out of that apartment. Unfortunately, the case became cool. Now, I don't really want to call it cold. It was cool, but definitely the case wasn't thriving and wasn't really active. That all changed when Cold Justice from the Oxygen Network, well, they began working on a deep dive into the case and helping Minot police detectives. Shortly following their aired episode in 2022, Nicole was arrested for stabbing and killing her roommate. Now, back in 2022, Minot Police Chief John Klug told Court TV that Nicole had never not been a suspect. According to the affidavit, investigators had been told that Nicole had admitted to the murder to her then boyfriend, William May. This was clear back in 2009. And detectives were also concerned with her changing statements. Initially, Nicole had told police that she was at her parents' farm during the weekend that Anita was murdered. But detectives said Nicole had told a friend she was at a bar in Russo before she went back to her apartment. Well, all that happened. And last Tuesday, Nicole faced a jury of her peers for the charge of Class AA felony murder. In North Dakota, that's the most serious category of murder with a potential life sentence without the possibility of parole. Opening statements went exactly as the media had predicted. The state argued that Nicole and Anita had a toxic relationship and that Nicole finally ended the whole thing by stabbing her friend twice in the chest. Now, the defense highlighted other potential suspects and said the charges that were filed 15 years after the crime were driven by the media sensation created by the program Cold Justice. Now, first out of the gate on the witness stand was Sharon Knutson. That's Anita's adopted mom. She testified that Anita was scared of Nicole. She was so scared, she had her father install a lock on her bedroom door to protect herself and her privacy. Well, then the state established through witnesses how Anita was found and the state addressed the looming elephant in the room that had been called out by the defense in their opening statements. The state called Chief Del Places to the stand, asking him to explain how the Minot Police Department began working with Cold Justice. The chief said Cold Justice contacted the police department, offering assistance and forensic expertise. The chief openly admitted the help and the resources reignited the case. He said in the prior decade that staffing was a major issue at the Minot Police Department, and that was one reason the case turned cool. The chief was then forced to answer questions about the previous chief. I mentioned him before. He was the chief when Nicole was arrested in 2022. Well, there's a bit of a controversy here. Chief Klug, so the one that was there in 2022, he was forced to step down from his position just a little more than 2 months ago. Back in September, an inquiry into the department was launched over concerns of high officer turnover and inconsistencies in employee discipline. Back in September, when that whole investigation was happening, the police department had 17 employee vacancies, which is approximately about 25% of their police force. Now, as expected, the city downplayed the whole entire investigation, and that's exactly what a PR firm would tell them to do. So don't be shocked by that whole downplaying. The city manager said it wasn't anything criminal in the Minot Police Department. It was just conflicting or abrasive managerial styles. So they made a change. Chief Klug was forced out and Chief Places was put in his place, which is why he landed on the witness stand in the trial and why he was forced to answer those tough questions. Well, after all of that extracurricular stuff on the stand about the Cold Justice Program and about the turnover in the Minot Police Department, the state called Sergeant Goodman. He talked about how, on the day that Anita's body was found, detectives brought Nicole into the apartment just to help determine if anything was missing. He alleged she quickly said, "My iPod is missing." He said that kind of gave investigators pause because she was acting a little off during that interaction. Not really upset about her roommate, but more upset about her iPod. Now, the defense countered and said her roommate was just killed. How was she supposed to act? Now, evidence at the trial was entered, showing a video walkthrough of the 2-bedroom, 1-bath apartment. In the video, you see exactly what you would expect a college apartment to look like. Tidy common spaces, a little less tidy bedroom for both Anita and Nicole. In the video, Anita is on the bed. Face not visible, small blood spot on her back. The bed is covered in blankets, so if there was much blood, it wasn't apparent before they moved Anita. The medical examiner did determine her cause of death was blood loss because one of the wounds severed her heart. Now, I will say this about the trial. There's a reoccurring theme for every state witness that was in law enforcement capacity. There's questions by the defense about how other potential suspects were cleared or moved down the list. The maintenance guy is mentioned just a little bit. The potential boyfriend, not that much. But Devin Hall, the defense brings him up over and over again. Remember, he's the sketchy guy that was seen running from the scene. The defense clearly had an idea that they wanted to get witnesses to admit that the FBI thought Devin Hall was the prime suspect. Also, asking these detectives why they ultimately chose not to really press Devin Hall. When personal friends or coworkers were called by the state, a manager at Nicole's job back in 2007 said Nicole often complained about Anita, even accusing her of turning off the oxygen in the fish tank, which led to Nicole's fish dying. That same coworker said that Nicole had told her that police suspected her, but that she should be fine if the coworker would just keep her mouth shut. Now, this list of friend witnesses, it just kept going. A former high school friend was called to the stand. She knew both the women, and she said after she found out about the death and when friends gathered to mourn, Nicole seemed to be only really concerned about her missing pink iPod. Then another friend said Nicole was over-obsessed that she might be blamed for the murder. That friend, however, admitted on cross-examination that she never really believed Nicole could murder anyone, let alone her friend Anita. And remember the former boyfriend, William May? Well, when he took the stand, He said that about a year after the murder, he heard Nicole say she had killed Anita. He did admit that Nicole was very drunk at the time of the so-called confession. Then another former friend said she heard Nicole admit to killing Anita when she was at a party with Nicole. That friend said Nicole was upset at the party because she felt like she was being bullied on the 1-year anniversary of the murder. The defense did get this witness to admit that she had a major drinking problem back in 2008, and that problem might have caused her memories to be less accurate 14 years later. When the defense had a chance to present their case, they called Doug Coons. He's a criminal investigative expert. He testified that yes, when he reviewed Nicole's changing statements in the days after the murder, they were slightly different. But he said it wasn't enough to file charges against Nicole. He pointed to the lack of direct evidence linking her to Anita's murder. Doug Coons said any statement made when you are drunk should not be given the credibility that the state is asking. Coons was also critical of the interview techniques employed by the Minot Police Department, saying they used the Reed interrogation technique, which generally leads a suspect into inadvertently admitting guilt. Coons also felt that Devon Hall, there's that name again, Devon Hall, he felt that Devon Hall was a better suspect in the murder than Nicole, and that the detectives didn't do their due diligence. And that was the only witness the defense called. They rested their case. When the two sides offered their closing statements, the defense hammered away at the dysfunction in the Minot Police Department and their unwillingness to truly look at other suspects in the murder of Anita. The state? Well, they said Nicole had admitted to the killing and had lied about her relationship with Anita, telling some people she hated her, telling others they were great friends. The jury deliberated for 5.5 hours. And on Wednesday, they rendered their verdict. Here, I'm just going to have you listen to it.
Dakota in District Court, County of Ward, North Central Judicial District. State of North Dakota Plaintiff versus Nicole Aaron Rice, Defendant. Criminal number 51 2022 CR 00421. Verdict form. We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn, find the defendant Nicole Aaron Rice not guilty of North Dakota, this 26th day of March 2025.
Is this the jury's verdict? Can you calm down a little bit, please? Is this the jury's verdict? Okay, the juror nodded, jury leader nodded. Ms. Sorgan, do you wish the jury polled?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. Sand, do you wish the jury polled?
No, sir.
Nicole Rice was acquitted of murder by a jury of 9 men and 3 women. And as you can guess, not everyone is as happy as Nicole's family was in that verdict reading. Tyler Schmaltz, he's a longtime friend of Anita's. Well, he said the following: 100% guilty. But in the end, it doesn't really matter. God truly knows what happened that night, and we will all stand before him one day and be judged, and I am happy knowing when that day comes, I get to meet Anita again. Now, when Nicole left the courtroom, she was obviously asked by reporters if she would like to make a comment. She declined. So did her attorney. Christopher Nelson of the Ward County State's Attorney's Office also declined to comment. All right, I'm left with something here. What's up with Devon Hall? Devon is currently housed in the Fort Peck Adult Correctional Facility in Montana. See, back in 2010, 3 years after Anita's murder, Devon, who was then 21 years old, pleaded guilty to 4 counts of burglary. Then in 2022, he was arrested again for burglary in the small town of Wolf Point, Montana. And it's a very small town, about 2,500 residents, most of them Native American, which, like I have mentioned before, law enforcement and the Native American community, they don't interact well, and that leads to minimal information available. So I don't have much about Devon Hall and his conviction. And can I veer off for just a minute here? I had someone in my reviews attack me for not representing the Native American relationship with law enforcement appropriately. And I'm just going to say it, that's not fair. I have repeatedly said that Native Americans, especially women, are scared to report abuse and lawbreaking. Now, I'm not here to point fingers at who is wrong in this situation. I have acknowledged the difficulties and also the secrecy those difficulties create. Throwing out accusations and hurtful comments does nothing to help fix the problem. We need to work to expose the truths and cover the cases. That's the best active way forward. I can't change what the police can do. I can change how we talk about it. And I've tried to do that. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox. I was just really bothered by that review. Most of them, I just let them roll off. But that's not fair because I have tried very hard to represent the Native American community. Okay, back to the trial. Reviewing this trial, I think the fact that Devin was not examined further, that he was cleared because he was supposedly in Montana and not running from the scene, well, I think that played heavily in the jury's decision. I could be wrong. Maybe some jurors will eventually share their experience. But when there are conflicting accounts as to when Devin arrived from Montana to North Dakota, some say the day before the murder, some say the day after the murder, well, that leaves doubt. And the fact that Devin claimed he owned a knife exactly like the one used to murder Anita, and that he said his knife was missing a medallion, and so was the knife that killed Anita, well, those are some loose ends that needed tied up. Maybe it could have been proven more solidly that he wasn't in North Dakota. If it could have been proven, it should have been proven. Let's do the right thing here by remembering Anita, who was murdered back in 2007. Anita was adopted at 5 months of age and grew up in both California and North Dakota. She wrote a book in 8th grade. According to her obituary, she wrote a book and it was published, and she was just an 8th grader when she did that. When she attended high school in North Dakota, she was active in FCCLA, even receiving state and national recognition for drug awareness. Anita graduated with honors. She loved to read, play the piano, and write stories. She was studying to become an elementary teacher. I hope Anita's case does not grow cold again. The jury said Nicole didn't do it. If someone else did do it, I hope for her family that person can be found. Let me know what you think of this case, especially if you're from the area. Now, I'm going to be completely upfront with you in the next story. I'm recording this podcast about 2 days earlier than I usually do. My husband and me and my little Q, well, we're traveling to Utah to watch Garrett from Murder with My Husband play pickleball. And Daisy and Q are going to get to hang out, and Peyton and I get to enjoy some much needed sunshine. So I'm going to give you the latest details that I could find on the next breaking crime news story before I recorded and I sent to production early. And I'm telling you that because some things might come out in the meantime, but let's at least catch you up to where we are at this point. We're headed to the beautiful state of Hawaii, where 46-year-old Gerhard Koenig and his wife, 36-year-old Ariel, and their 2 young children were living out Gerhardt's professional dreams. See, Gerhardt is a doctor with the Anesthesia Medical Group in Maui. Well, to be completely accurate, he was with the Anesthesia Group. He has since been suspended. And we'll get to that, the why of that and everything in just a minute. Let's first learn more about Gerhardt, the good doctor. Gerhardt completed his undergrad at the University of California, San Diego, and then graduated from the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine. He worked for 9 years as a resident and then staff anesthesiologist at UPMC. During that time, he also served as a professor and clinical instructor at the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine. During his time at UPMC, Gerhardt met his incredibly successful wife, Ariel, who worked as a nuclear scientist. The couple married in 2018. Then about 2 years ago, Gerhardt followed his dreams and started his job in Maui, living the island life with his family. Now, the couple were on vacation in Oahu when on Monday, Gerhardt and Ariel went hiking to the Pali Lookout. This scenic attraction sits on an elevation of around 1,200 feet in the Ko'olau mountain range. When you get up to the lookout, it's basically a panoramic view of the lush coastline. Interestingly, the Pali Lookout has historical significance. In 1795, the Battle of Nuuanu occurred where King Kamehameha united the Hawaiian Islands after forcing enemy warriors off the steep cliffs. The king's military forces killed the invading enemies by shoving them off the cliffs. Foreshadowing? Maybe, because when Gerhardt and Ariel climbed to the famous lookout, Gerhardt allegedly asked Ariel to take a picture with him. When she wouldn't comply, he hit her in the head with a rock more than once and allegedly stabbed her with 2 syringes containing an unknown substance. He then tried to push her off the cliff. Onlookers stopped Gerhardt before he completed the tossing of his wife over the cliffside. Others called for help, and Ariel was rushed to a Honolulu hospital. As of earlier this week, she was listed as critical with head and facial injuries. Gerhardt fled down the mountain, but was later arrested and charged with attempted murder. And like I said, he has been suspended from his duties at the hospital in Maui. When Island News asked coworkers of Gerhardt about the arrest, they didn't really want to be made public or talk on camera, but they did say he was mostly friendly and quiet, and they were surprised he was tangled up in this charge. Sano Kauhai, she's the executive director of Women Helping Women in Hawaii. Well, she pointed out to Island News that partner abuse is common and happens regardless of people's profession or socioeconomic status. She said that domestic violence incidents don't discriminate. She then went on to mention that 2 other women were allegedly killed by partners in just the last few months. 43-year-old Janine Sturgeon was found dead in her apartment in February. Her boyfriend, 41-year-old Danny Freitas, confessed to the murder during a session with his therapist. Her loss of life is horrific, but the tragedy is even more tragic because Danny had a history and was still out and about abusing Janine. Danny had 17 prior convictions, 2 of them for abuse. For those abuse charges, he only served 181 days in jail. Then last October, he was arrested for felony abuse for allegedly choking Janine in front of her 13-year-old daughter when he posted a $50,000 bail. And in January, 68-year-old Cynthia Moore from Maui was found dead in her home after her husband Francisco called 911 saying Cynthia was unresponsive. He told detectives she might have taken a fall. Following an investigation, Francisco was arrested and charged with second-degree murder via domestic abuse. Cynthia's family said she was subjected to ongoing abuse and control by Francisco. Now, I wanted to note the entire population of Maui is just shy of 164,000 people, yet we have 2 deaths in the first months of 2025 and an attempted murder on Monday when Gerhardt allegedly tried to push Ariel to her death. Now, Gerhardt has been charged with second-degree attempted murder, and he has a bail set at $5 million. I'll keep you updated on a potential motive above and beyond the "she wouldn't take a picture with me" concept. Let me know what you think of this case. Now to this story out of Kansas that has all the makings of horror movies from the 80s. A week ago, a babysitter was trying to get all the kids she was watching to go to bed. If you ever watched kids when you were younger, you know the drill. Everybody wants another drink of water, and some kids negotiate for extra TV or iPad time. Well, one of these kids in the home where the babysitter had been hired wanted the babysitter to take care of the monster under their bed. I had that fear as a kid, someone hiding under the bed just waiting for the lights to turn out before they harmed me in some way. Well, when this babysitter knelt down to look under the bed, she came eye to eye with a man hiding there. The man rolled from under the bed and began struggling with the babysitter before knocking her and the child to the ground and then running out the door. The man didn't get far, though. 27-year-old Martin Villalobos Jr. was arrested and booked in the Barton County Jail. And the hiding wasn't random. Police are saying the man once lived in the home and a protection order had been filed by an adult that lived in the residence. Martin wasn't supposed to be anywhere near that property. Now Martin is facing charges of aggravated kidnapping, aggravated burglary, aggravated battery, child endangerment, felony obstruction of law enforcement officers, and violating a protection order. Finally, a quick update to the Karen Reed case. Okay, remember, Karen's murder trial for allegedly running her boyfriend John O'Keefe over with her Lexus, well, it dead-ended with a hung jury last year. I'm not going to go over all the things leading up to today because I just have a quick update to the case. It was announced on Wednesday that Karen's legal team has a new member. Yes, she still has a legal team because the state is opting to retry her case, and jury selection begins on April 1st. So, who's her new attorney on the team? Victoria George, an alternate juror from her first trial. Victoria was in the jury the whole first trial, and then on the last day before deliberations, 12 of the jurors were selected from the 16, and Victoria was not chosen, so she was dismissed at that point. Victoria is a civil attorney in Massachusetts. She has spoken to WBZ-TV several times, most recently revealing her identity on March 5th in an exclusive statement. She wrote the following: I was a fair-minded juror who left this trial questioning the integrity of the system long before the defense filed a motion to dismiss with allegations of jury tampering. It is the Reed case itself and the fact that it is still being brought that has left many in Massachusetts wary, distrustful, and scared of our system. As a lawyer, this reality saddens me even more because I remember how much faith I had in our system as an optimistic law student. Okay, all of this left me to question, can she legally join the team? Well, CBS News says yes, mostly because she is a licensed lawyer in Massachusetts and is technically not connected to the case anymore. A WBZ-TV legal expert named Catherine Loftus said the following about the new hire. It feels wrong, but sometimes just because something feels wrong in the law doesn't mean there is a legal reason why it can't happen. I've gone through, all the master rules of professional ethics and conflict of interest, and I don't think there is legally any precedent for Attorney George not to enter an appearance. I don't think there's any basis that the court could take her off this case. Now, while I work out each night, I've been watching the episodes of the Karen Reed documentary on HBO Max. I think I'm on episode 4 right now. I would recommend it. Karen doesn't come off glowing in the documentary, even though the most footage is of her and her legal team. It especially will help you be all kind of caught up on everything as the second trial is about to start this week. Let me know what you think about that attorney joining her team. Well, that's your Monday episode of Rise and Crime. Thank you for being here. I will get to all of the comments about the glove box, and do you call it a glove compartment, a glove box, a jockey box, whatever. I just recorded this episode early, like I mentioned before, so I'll do those in the next episode. Please share this episode with a friend if you're so inclined. If you love it, that's a good way to help the podcast grow. And please keep sending me your case suggestions. I love to cover what you want to hear. And make sure you follow us on all of our social media and our YouTube channels here at Oh No Media. That's Murder with My Husband, Into the Dark, and Rise and Crime. Join me again on Thursday for more morning crime news. I'm Mama Jules, and keep safe out there.